I really, really struggled. And it was hard because I watched Survivor, but I just truly thought that this show was fake. I was like, they do not put these people through this. There is no way this is gonna, this is just not right. And I just visualized you'd walk out there and you'd see tents and campers and porta potties, and there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. It is the real deal.
1 degree of separation. The lines all cross, the stories align. 1 degree of separation. Who's the next? You'll know in time.
Welcome back to 1 Degree of Separation, the podcast where we explore the fascinating chains of connections that link incredible people. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss any of the incredible stories we uncover. Today we're diving into a life story that proves grit and attitude can turn a setback into a victory. My guest is a woman who, through determination, transformed a tough reality TV experience into a powerful message of perseverance for audiences everywhere. She built a strong foundation as a swim coach in South Dakota and endured the grueling conditions of Survivor Nicaragua before becoming the last woman standing. She has channeled that entire experience into a successful career as an author of books like Your Winner Within and as a highly respected motivational speaker. We're meeting her thanks to the referral made by last week's guest, Krista Kay. Please welcome the incredible, determined, and inspiring Holly Hoffman.
Oh,
Holly, welcome to the show.
thank you, Ryan. That was a very nice introduction.
Yeah. I do my research and make sure introduce you well.
Thank you.
So you were referred to us by Krista Kay. Tell me first about how you know her.
Well, actually, she and my daughter played high school basketball together against each other. I shouldn't say together. They played against each other. She played for a different town, of course. And I just watched her play because she was so tall and I could tell that she just loved the game of basketball. So we actually grew up in the same area. Charlie and I raised our family in the same area that she was in. And I've just kind of known her, grew up with her, with my children. And also, she decided that she too wanted to start speaking. She's more of a comedian speaker. And I helped her along the way, and she had a lot of questions and so forth. So yeah, it's definitely through speaking and when she was in high school.
Okay. So I want to start off very early off in your life here first. You grew up in Eureka, South Dakota, right?
Yes, very, very small town, 850 people in the entire town.
Wow. So we actually kind of have that in common a little bit. I actually grew up in Eureka, California.
You did? Oh
I
my gosh,
did.
yes,
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yep, I've
Yeah.
heard of that city.
I had heard of Eureka, Kansas, but I hadn't heard of Eureka, South Dakota.
Yes, very small town. Like I said, people park in the middle of the streets. There's no stoplights. Everybody knows everybody. I graduated with 19 in my high school class, so very, very small town.
Wow. So walk us through a specific memory from your years growing up there that instilled the values you carried into Survivor.
I would definitely have to say my running career. I just I started running very young, and I think it was just kind of to get out of the house. I grew up in an abusive home, and my parents separated. Actually, they decided to divorce when I was in the 6th grade, and that's really when I started running. I started running, and I felt free when I did it. I was by myself. I could do a lot of thinking, and I'd have to say my running career really helped me elevate a lot of determination and desire and to just kind of keep going. And I joined the high school. I actually made the high school track team as an 8th grader and went to the state track meet. I don't remember, it was so long ago, so you have to forgive me, but I did. I don't remember that I placed as an 8th grader. And then I placed at the state track meet my freshman year and my sophomore year. And my sophomore year, I actually got second in both hurdles. And then my junior and senior year, I won. I was state champion. So I just think the grit of the hard work and realizing that hard work pays off I really think that truly my high school track career set that example of how you have to continue going, how you have to continue running the race even if you fall, because I fell many times running the hurdles. But the one thing you do when you fall is you got to get back up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now, fast forwarding a bit, for 17 years, you were a swim coach, a role that demands leadership and motivation. What was the biggest challenge you faced as a coach, and what did it teach you about connecting with people?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest challenge it was we practiced in a 20 by 40-foot pool. So we
Wow.
were not in a regular, normal 25-meter, 25-yard, 50-meter pool. Our pool was like half the size of a competitive pool. So that was really hard. I started the team on my own and I knew absolutely nothing about competitive swimming. And the reason I started it was because we had a very small pool. It was a private pool in our community. And I was driving my children one way over an hour to practice. So I'd go pick them up from school, drive them an hour. They'd practice, we'd come home, and it just got to be so hard. And it was the driving, it was the middle of the winter, and in South Dakota, winters are hard, the roads are slippery, there's a lot of snow. And then I just finally thought, okay, I'm going to start this. So the biggest challenge was starting a program and knowing nothing. And that's really where I was. I didn't know a thing about swimming. So I had to read a lot of books, watched a lot of videos, asked a lot of other coaches about information and how I even started a team. I didn't even know. But the biggest challenge would probably be just practicing in that pool because, the kids would come on, they practice in this tiny little pool, and then we'd go show up at a swim meet and the pool was, double plus size. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced. But it also really paid off because our swim team was very little, but we were very powerful. We had some amazing swimmers on our team, state champion swimmers. Yeah.
So, after 2 decades of coaching, you decided to pursue a new kind of challenge and sent in an application for Survivor. What inspired that?
Yeah. I don't know, honestly. I was watching Survivor Samoa, and I've watched Survivor. I've always watched Survivor. And I just got this crazy idea. I had never ever thought of even applying. And I really think it was because all of our kids were off to college and I just thought, I want to try this and see if even get a call back. So I just made one video. That was it. I didn't have a script. I stood in front of the camera. Charlie held the camcorder and I just talked. And I really think it was something that I kind of just did at the last minute, thinking, oh, they're never going to call me anyway. And so I thought, just send it in and just see what happens. So I would probably have to say just the inspiration of, are they going to really call me back? One of those types of things. So it was nothing that I was going through or I really wanted to do. I just thought I'm just going to throw a video together and see what happens. That's honestly why I decided to do it.
Now, and so how surprised were you when you actually got the call back saying they were interested?
I was shocked. In fact, the first time they called, this number came up that I didn't recognize. And then they left a voicemail, and it was a casting director from LA, and his name was Ken. I'll never forget that. And he said, "This is a casting director for Survivor. We'd like to talk to you about being on the show." And I actually started laughing, and I deleted the voicemail because I thought it was a joke. I thought, oh, somebody's playing a joke on me. This absolutely cannot be right. So I was, and then they called back a couple days later, and I thought, gosh, maybe this is real. And sure enough, it was, and I was shocked. I was very shocked.
Now, when you finally realized that it was real, it wasn't a scam, what did you start doing to prepare?
I actually didn't make the show before I started preparing. I actually, as soon as I got my first call, I started running, I started swimming, I started lifting weights. I started reading books on mental awareness and how to read people, just for like the mental aspect of the game. And I hadn't even made the show, but I thought, you know what, this is such a short window of time. I need to start preparing just in case I get on this show. So I hired a personal trainer and I couldn't tell him because you can't really tell anybody that if you make it. So I just told him I was training for a triathlon. And so, but yeah, I did a lot of things like that. Physically and mentally, I started preparing, and I didn't even, like I said, know I was even on the show yet.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now the process of them getting you to Nicaragua, how does that work? Do they just kinda drop you on the island and say, "Here you go," or
No, I had to fly to LA. I actually had to fly to they actually flew me to LA, and I had to go through a casting call. And I kind of expected that I made it because, like, we would go down for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we couldn't talk to anybody. We had to sit by ourselves and so forth, and they would eliminate people. So I would, of course, kind of look around, and I would notice, oh, that one lady, that blonde, that or that, she's gone, or the gentleman's gone. And I just kept coming. I just kept going down, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been eliminated yet. So that's kind of when I thought, oh my goodness, I could have made this. So my very last interview before I left LA, I had to interview in front of the president of CBS and the executive directors of CBS. And then I had to go in front of a camera and I had to do an interview in front of a camera and so forth. So, and I went back home not knowing if I made it. And then about a week later, I got a call that I had made it, and I was absolutely shocked. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, one video, I didn't have a script. I sent it in, and I was shocked that I made it. Yeah.
yeah, I imagine that once you get to the point where you're meeting with the president of CBS, you're like, "This must be serious."
Yes, that was serious, and I'll never forget, like, they took us in this van, and we had to go to, like, the CBS studio, and we had to walk up these steps, and we had to go into this room, and I was literally just shaking because I thought, but I always kept thinking to myself, "Just stay true to yourself, answer the questions, and if you make it, you make it."
So describe to me your first impressions when you first got there, and what did you think?
Well, they actually flew us from they flew us to Miami the first night, and we stayed overnight in Miami, and we were confined to our rooms. We couldn't talk to anyone. They came in, they took away our cell phones and our computers. And you vote someone off when you play this game every 3 days. And if you're one of the first ones voted off when the game starts, you can't go home. You have to sit there the entire 2 months of filming.
Wow.
So when they came into our rooms in Miami and they took away our cell phones and our computers, I was completely disconnected from my family and friends. And that was kind of an odd feeling. And then we flew to Managua. We went through customs and we actually did not start the game right away. And a lot of people think that they just pick these people up and they drop them off on this island and then they start playing Survivor. And that's really not what happens. They took us to this resort, and I didn't know that either. I was totally shocked. And we went to this resort, and we were actually at this resort for 6 nights before we started filming on the 7th day. We couldn't talk to anyone. When we'd sit down for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we had to look straight down. We couldn't make eye contact with any of the other contestants. So right then, we hadn't even played the game, and I was like, "This is really odd. This is really strange." So that was a different experience as well.
Now, I mean, how did they enforce something like that? Are they watching you while you're eating going, "Don't look at them"?
Yes. Yep, yep. They watch you, and if they see you making eye contact at someone, they'll come around and they'll tap you on the shoulder, and they don't say your name because they don't want the other contestants to know your name until you start playing the game. So you are monitored 24 hours a day before the show starts.
Wow.
Yeah,
So now you finally start the game, and what are the first few days like?
terrible. I really, really struggled, and it was hard because I watched Survivor, but I just truly thought that this show was fake. I was like, they do not put these people through this. There is no way this is gonna, this is just not right. And I just visualized you'd walk out there and you'd see tents and campers and porta potties, and there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. It is the real deal. And I really, really struggled. I felt like I didn't fit in with my tribe right away. I said before even started the game, I'm going to just lay back. I'm going to stay calm. I'm just going to go with the flow. I did the complete opposite. I got out there and I started making alliances 15, 20 minutes into the game. And I struggled. I really, really, really struggled. And just watching that on national television, watching that back was really hard for me because I did. I literally had a breakdown because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
So you realized right away that making friends was the most important thing you could do.
I did. And I probably should have just kind of backed off a little bit, because I felt like I was jumping into the game a little too fast, too quickly. But I just felt it was almost, I don't even know what word I could use. I felt a little insecure. I felt like, okay, I really want to play this game hard from the beginning, where I should have just stepped back a little bit. And I did. I had a meltdown. I was crying. Day 5, I wanted to quit. And I was like, I can't do this. And then I started thinking of, oh my goodness, I coach a swim team. I have 3 children. I'm going to walk off and quit on national television. What kind of message am I giving them? Yeah.
So it was the thinking about your past leadership experience that made you go, I can't quit. I can't do this.
Yes. Yes. Plus, Jimmy Johnson, the former NFL football coach for the Dallas Cowboys, he was on my tribe. And I pulled him aside and I just basically said, I really, really need to talk to somebody. So he and I walked over and we sat on this log, and his words really, really inspired me to stay. He looked at me and he said, we really need you. You can't quit. You really need to think about this. It's going to be something you're going to regret. And after he said some of those words to me, I was like, you are so right. I really, really need to keep pushing forward. And, that really resonated with me because growing up in an abusive home, my father was not around very much. When my parents separated and I was a 6th grader, my dad was kind of a floater. We never really knew where he was. And so my high school track coach became like my father figure. He inspired me, he encouraged me. And I think that's why I turned to Jimmy Johnson on the island, because he was also a coach and I looked up to him as, wow, Jimmy Johnson is on my tribe. And so when he and I went over and we sat on that log, it was almost kind of a backflash to, wow, Mr. Hermanson in high school really helped me get through some of those tough times. And that's exactly what Coach Johnson is doing out here in the jungle.
So so you ended up at some point becoming the last remaining member of your tribe. What was that
Yes.
feeling like? Were you constantly the underdog at that point?
Well, I was the underdog. I would say definitely to day 5. And then day 11, we had a tribe swap. And I got in with some young kids. And I really think that's what saved my game, because these young kids were listening to me. I think I inspired them. I encouraged them. And that goes back to my swimming days. So, uh, I felt like I was the underdog right away, but once we had that tribe switch, that's where I felt like I could really get these kids on my side and keep moving forward.
Now, were there any specific challenges that were more difficult than others?
Um, they were all kind of hard just because, you're living off of a quarter cup of rice a day and we didn't get a lot of food to eat. They said our season was one of the worst seasons as far as finding food. We just couldn't find food. Drank a lot of water, but it rained the first 17 nights we were out there. We slept in the pouring rain, so we were not sleeping actually. Definitely sleep deprivation, the starvation, the elements were terrible. You're constantly paranoid. The paranoia is unbelievable. You're constantly watching people thinking, who are they talking to? Who are they going to vote off next? So that was really hard. So I wouldn't really say I was the underdog the whole way through. It was definitely that tribe switch on day 11 where I was like, okay, I got in with these young kids now. I think I can keep moving forward in this game.
Looking at the behind the scenes aspect of the show, what safety precautions do they take to make sure nothing absolutely terrible happens to you?
That a lot of people ask me that, like, is there a medical team right there? No, there isn't. They're all a ways away. So if something happens, it took them a while to get to camp. You are literally on your own in the jungle. You have to sign a bunch of contracts before you go. But you're there. If an animal comes in, I'm sure they've got some protection somewhere. The last thing that they want is someone to die on the show, but you are kind of putting your life at risk. There are animal. We heard monkeys out there. There are snakes out there. This last season of Survivor, a gentleman got bit by a snake, and
Wow.
they had to take him off the show. He was just sitting by the water, and a snake came up and bit him on his foot. So you definitely do put your life at risk. But before every challenge and after every challenge, they would have a medical team there to make sure that everybody was okay. Because, of course, they don't want something really, really bad to happen, because that would probably end the show.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So now I come from a background in TV production. I actually work for a
Mhm.
TV station here in the area. And I'm,
Okay.
I'm curious, what type of production people were in the jungle with you? Like, was there camera operators? What was there?
There was a big, huge camera crew. You had a camera on you 24 hours a day. The camera crew is from Australia. The only time the cameras turned and walked away was when you went off by yourself. But otherwise, there were cameras everywhere. And that was hard to get used to. When you're trying to talk and scheme to somebody and there's all these cameras in your face, that was hard. At the beginning of the show, I actually felt myself running away from the cameras. And then you just start getting used to them. But there are producers there. They have headsets on. They're definitely talking to each other. They do pull you aside. They tap you on the shoulder, or if you were laying in the hut, they tap you on the foot. And then they pull you aside, and they do interviews, small, short interviews. But I would say right away when we started, there were at least 25 to 30 cameras. And then as people got voted off, they kind of let the cameras go. But the cameramen were there 24 hours a day. And they never tell you what to say. They never tell you what to do. Because I know when I had my mental breakdown at the beginning, people were like, did they make you do that? Or did they? I was like, no, so never. But yes, camera crew, producers, and so forth. But they basically just stand back and let you take over.
Okay. So when I talked to Krista my last episode, she was on the TLC show My Giant Life, and she kind
Yes.
of mentioned that with that show, producers kind of tried to kind of guide the storyline a little bit. Was the same thing true with Survivor?
No, absolutely not. And we actually talked about that. She and I talked about that because I'm like, no, that never happened. If I would have to say that happened, the only time I felt like that would happen was when they did the interviews. When they did the one-on-one interviews, and they would ask questions like, how would you feel if Jane and Marty were in an alliance? Well, Jane and Marty were not in an alliance, but I felt like they were putting that in my head. So that is the only time that I thought that they were maybe kind of putting thoughts in our head, but never told us what to say otherwise, and never told us what to do. So there is a different aspect of her show and my show, because they never said, okay, we got to take two on this. Wait a minute, we want you to say this, or we want you to do this. Never happened. No.
So they just completely let it play out.
Yes, 100%.
So now, as the show kind of wrapped up and it was time to leave the island, were you worried at all about like readapting to regular life at all?
Oh my gosh, yes, that was really hard. I made it 38 days. I was the last one voted off. I was in the final four, and it was hard. I'll have to admit, but when I speak now, I say I was not one day short. I was 38 days long, because in life you're never one day short. So I think that's my whole storyline is you're never one day short. But coming home was very, very hard. I lost 22 pounds. I was very ill. I had nightmares about howler monkeys attacking me. I struggled sleeping. So it was hard coming out of the game. There are some actually survivors that come out of this game and then they watch themselves on TV and they actually have to go into counseling. I know of two survivors specifically that had to do some counseling after the show. So yes, it is hard to come out of the show.
So it definitely gives you a little bit of mental troubles readapting.
Yes. Yes, it did. It was hard. Like I said, I did have trouble sleeping and I did have some nightmares.
Yeah. So now you left the island, readapted to life, and found yourself with a powerful story. So what inspired you to take that story and start sharing with people as a motivational speaker?
Ryan, that was another thing that just kind of it happened. I did not pursue a career in speaking. During the show, I would have survivor gatherings, and every Wednesday night after the show, I mean, hundreds of people would show up to watch the show, and I would get up and I would speak to them and say, this is what happened this episode. And they'd ask me questions. I had to be very careful so I didn't jump ahead and give anything away. And then when the show ended, I was asked to speak. And I actually said no, because I'm like, I don't know what to say. What do they want me to speak about? And then they called me back and they said, just come in and tell us your story. And I did call CBS to make sure that I could do that. And then I talked to Jeff Probst, who's the host of Survivor. And he gave me the best advice. He said, tell your story and speak from your heart, because they knew my background of how I was raised. And, I had a hard childhood and so forth. And so I went to this event and I got up. I didn't have a PowerPoint. I didn't have notes. I got up and I just started speaking. And I was like, oh my goodness, I kind of have a story here. And then after I was done speaking, I had two ladies come up and say, would you speak to our group? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I started doing it and I was like, I think people do this for a business. I didn't even know this people did it for a living, to be honest with you. I didn't. And it was really, I had a speaking bureau reach out to me and they really, really helped me. And she and I got on the phone and she said, we would really love it if you could join our speaking bureau. And I said, okay, explain to me what this is. And she said, we book you to speak. And I was like, what? And so that's just how it started. I've never had a speaking coach. I tell my story and I speak from my heart, like Jeff Probst told me to do. And the program is so powerful because I really take you on a roller coaster about how we're all really in life living in a jungle. And at times we're all sitting on that log wanting to quit, but it's how you get back up and how you persevere and be resilient and turn adversity into strength that matters.
Yeah. So now, where do you travel a lot for these speaking engagements?
My goodness, yes. I travel a lot. In October, I had 14 programs. I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Orlando, Florida, Mandan, North Dakota, Minot, North Dakota, Chicago, St. Louis. And this career, some months are busier than others. Like December is very slow. January can be slow. April and May are always packed. But my goal when I started, I opened my own business. It's called Inner Depth LLC. I do have bureaus that I work with, but I also book on my own. And I built a website. I've written 3 books. I have a promo video. And I basically did this from not knowing one thing about this career. But I also felt that every single day I had to do something to learn and to grow and to say, okay, how am I going to make this successful? And so I just kept moving forward. And so I had a goal. I said, I want to speak in every state. When I started, I said that was my goal. And I've been to every state but 2. One is New Hampshire and the other is Alaska, but I just booked a program in New Hampshire. So I have one state left, and that's Alaska. I've been to Hawaii. I'm going to Canada next year. I'm going to Africa to speak. I've been to the Bahamas to speak. So one opportunity, you just don't know where it's going to get you.
Yeah. So I'm in the Dallas area. Anything coming up here?
But yes, I've been there a lot. Yes,
I'll,
I've been there a lot.
I'll have to keep an eye out for you and try to come see you sometime.
Yes, that'd be great.
Yeah. So now in 2019, you earned the Certified Speaking Professional designation, which from what I understand is a really high honor in the industry. Tell
It
me about how
is.
that came about.
Well, I went to the National Speakers Association conference and we sat into these different programs and they one of them was earning your CSP. And I thought, I think this is really a good goal. I'm going to try it. So basically what it is, it takes 5 years to get. You have to do so many speeches every year. You have to make so much money every year. You have to have 30 referrals. You have to make a video. And then people that are actually in the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame have to watch your video and they have to decide whether you're going to get this award or not. So it's very hard because you have to keep track of every program. You have to have all these referrals. You have to make this, and it takes 5 years to get it.
Nice. So you mentioned the Hall of Fame members voting for you. I assume, is that a goal long term to be a Hall of Famer yourself?
I would love to. If it ever came about, I would love to. My personal goal was to get my CSP, but to be a Hall of Famer, you have to have other people refer you and so forth. But it would be an honor. Yeah, it would.
So soon after Survivor ended, you also wrote your own book, Your Winner Within. That was your first book, right? So that talks about overcoming insurmountable challenges. How did the experience of writing that book help you process and apply the lessons you learned on Survivor to your new life?
Well, when I speak and also the chapters of my book are 6 words: faith, attitude, determination, confidence, desire, and perseverance. And those are my 6 words that I talk about in my program. But I also say the value of those are not words to survive, those are words to thrive. Because thriving is when you're faced with adversity and you can continue to keep going and not, just be sitting on that log. So what I did is I took those words and I turned them into chapters. So those are the chapters of my book. But I talk about Survivor in my book, but I didn't want to write my book as my speech because I wanted people to hear me speak, but then I wanted to, have the book as a referral to be like, okay, what else can we talk about attitude, or what else can we talk about confidence? So there's a lot of personal stories in that book as well. So that's kind of how I, um, you know, did the whole 2 of them by using those 6 words, but I didn't do them exactly the same.
Okay. So so what inspired you to write the book in the first place? Did someone come to you and say, "You have a great story to tell, you should write a book about it?"
Yeah, actually, nobody. I did it on my own. I just decided I published my own book. I'm a self publisher. I did the research and figured out how to do it. I have a company out of Tennessee that helped me lay it out, and they actually print it for me and everything. So I just kind of wanted to do it on my own, and that's what I did. And then I actually wrote my second book called Write Yourself a Note, and that's a self-help book. And then I just wrote my third book called 3 Step Stride, and that's about my hurdling career.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about Write Yourself a Note. What is that about?
The which one?
Write Yourself a Note.
What I did there is after every chapter, it's a self-help book. I just talked about confidence, and I kind of brought some of things in my first book. But then after every chapter, you have to write yourself a note about what you learned from this chapter, how you're going to better yourself, and so forth. And that's kind of how I did that book.
Okay. So what's the one piece of advice that's like the overall theme of that book?
I really think it's the value of writing things down. I journal almost every day, and I actually think writing has just kind of gone to the wayside because of technology. It's just too easy to type on your computer or send a text message. And so I just want people to know that when you write it down, 3 things happen. You think about it, you write it down, and you reread it. So it's really embedded in your mind 3 times. And it's so important to write things down.
So I'll admit, I'm probably the exact person that needs to read that book because if I was to go look for a pin in my house right now, I probably wouldn't find one. So now looking back at your whole journey from swim coach to survivor contestant to speaking professional, what is the single theme or lesson that connects everything?
Never give up. Totally never give up. My mom is my hero. She never gave up. She worked so hard. I have 2 older brothers, and, we didn't have very much growing up. We didn't have a car. Many nights we sat at the dinner table with a bowl of cereal. My mom worked so hard, and she did it all on her own. And, when I was a child, you don't realize those things when you're a child, a teenager. And as I got older, I started realizing how hard my mom really did work to raise my brothers and I. And she never gave up. She just kept going one foot in front of the other. And so I would have to say my whole story of my whole life right now is just never give up. I mean, failure isn't falling down, failure is staying down. We're not going to be successful at everything. But if you don't try, you're never going to know. If I wouldn't have sent that video in, I would not be where I am today. I consider myself very successful in what I did, my career. Um, I get a lot of programs. I love doing what I do. So that would probably be another a life lesson. Love doing what you do. because it will show. When I get on stage, I just love it. I just have fun, and it shows. So I would have to say never give up, and you've got to love what you do.
So now, lastly, as we kind of wrap things up here, where can people find you online if they want to read your books or have you for a speaking engagement?
Yeah, I have a website, hollyhoffman.com. And you can contact me through my website. It comes directly to me. You can order my books online. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I think I'm not, there's some of the social media I had to delete because I was spending too much time on social media. But through my website is probably the number one. Oh, I'm also on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I post a lot on LinkedIn as well. So I would have to say those four, but contacting me, right, you can right through my website. I have a little bar on the top that says contact and it comes right to me.
Tell me about the person you're recommending for my next episode.
Well, I'm recommending Dan Mears. I keep checking my phone to see if I sent him a text message. He is the Kansas City mascot. He was for 35 years, and he has an incredible story. And the talk about perseverance, he's really persevered. They were bringing him in the stadium for practice as the mascot through on a bungee cord, and the cord broke, and he almost lost his life through in his career. And he's just been able to go 1 foot at a time forward.
All right. Well, thank you, Holly, for your time on this interview. It's been awesome chatting with you. And
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, and thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Join me next Tuesday as I talk with the next link in the chain. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and follow on social media, One Degree Pod.